Hello everyone, thanks for joining us today and listening to our talk. Today Lucas and I want to present a little bit our vision of the Gnosis Safe beyond the use case of Multisig and where we want to go in the future and what problems we want to solve. But before we look into the future, we want to look a little bit like why did we start with the Gnosis Safe and which issues did we try to solve. And for this, let's take a look at some of our Web3 issues that I think most of us are aware of. And yeah, the four that we want to outline are that, for one, that private keys are currently the predominant way to manage your funds, but actually they are a single point of failure. So if your private key is exposed, everybody can have access to your funds and they can basically make use of your funds in any way. The same as if you lose your private key, you can lose complete access to your funds and there's mostly no way to recover them. Also, in many cases, there's a lack of guarantee or safety guarantees. What are you trying to perform on the chain? So there was a very nice case of a hack where actually MetaMask was compromised, and since it's a single, like you have your single private key and then it was connected to a ledger, they had to trust MetaMask and there was no secondary guarantee that allowed you to check what are you actually performing. Also, this single private key approach is very much the core of the current protocol. So we can see that there have been a lot of discussions for a long time, also by Vitalik, about how can we bring account abstraction and more flexible account logic to the Ethereum smart chain. But in a lot of cases, currently it's still that private keys are the predominant way, and there's even endeavors to further empower these and keep it to the private key approach. And even so, there's a lot of work. There's no real progress in the past years, and there's still a lot of work to be done. Also, most of the private keys are limited to a single user. Like there are some mechanisms like BLC keys or Shamir's secret where you can split up your keys, but it's very inflexible and you have no way of like changing your key afterwards or changing your structure afterwards. So to tackle these issues, we believe that smart contracts accounts or programmable accounts are the solution, because we feel that to use smart contract accounts will enable us to bring mass adoption to the Ethereum blockchain, because a lot of users of the current Web 2 world expect certain features to be present on the blockchain or to be present when they start managing their funds. And smart contracts allow us to bring a couple of these core features back to the blockchain, or bring them to the blockchain, not back. And one of them is that we can have extendable access control, which allows us to do a lot of things, also a lot of UX benefits that users are used to. And one advantage that is often disregarded is upgradability, which allows us to be very flexible also for the future and to adapt to the future. So let's take a look at each of these. And first, extendable access control. Actually, this is a very core feature, and it's very important when we look at smart contracts. And a lot of wallets and smart contracts make use of this. So one part is that we can use automation to really make it easier for the user how they interact with this. There are a couple of projects out there. One of them is, for example, Gelato, which allows you to automatically execute transactions at certain points, but it also allows you to set things like allow lists, where certain contracts behave differently and they are like you can automatically interact with certain contracts, or that you have certain limits that when you're within these limits, that there is no need for additional checks, or that there are different checks for these. A second feature is that you can have recovery mechanisms. I think, as mentioned before, private keys, if you lose your private keys, you normally lose lose access to all of your funds. And this happens in the past quite often, right? Like you just have to look at Twitter or any other social media platform, users are complaining, and they're used to that they can go to a centralized entity and ask, hey, please recover my funds, I want to have them all back. This is not really in the sense of a decentralized, self-governed or self-custodial approach, but they are good alternatives, and we have seen them in the past used by many different companies. We have social recovery, where you can basically define a list of friends that cover your funds. There's a dead man switch, which basically means if you have not performed any interaction for the last 1 or 2 years, whatever time frame you define, that then somebody else can claim your account. And we have even had prototypes which use location-based recovery, where you could basically define certain new locations, and we're using that to recover your funds. Another aspect, last but not least, is that we can enhance the security with smart contracts. You can have certain mechanisms that deny certain interactions, or even allow you to say you need approval from external parties like auditors that guarantee that your transaction is performing what you're expecting. And this also is very important because with smart contracts, this is not only happening off-chain, you can even bring this logic completely on-chain and perform this for each transaction. But not only this, but even more general UX benefits are very important. So currently, when you look at private keys, the most important interaction when you perform a transaction is that you have to have ease to perform your transactions. There are a couple of projects that try to work around this, which, for example, are OpenGSN. You also have projects like relaying projects from Infura and also from OpenZeppelin that try to tackle this problem. But most of them are still have the base as you have to own ETH to pay this transaction in one form or another. But with smart contracts, you actually can define your completely alternative payment method. When we look at OpenGSN, they have a nice example of this where with some overhead you can already achieve some of this logic. Also, it's possible that you can perform transaction batching. So normally private keys can only perform one transaction at a time. It's not possible that you within one transaction perform multiple calls from one address. But with smart contracts, you can basically batch multiple calls, multiple interactions together. Even so, there's a lot of research going on in empowering this on the private keys account. In general, the sentiment of the community is that smart contracts should be at the core and that we should have some form of account abstraction that empowers all these use cases. This transaction batching is just a very simple example, right? Like if we look at apps like InstaDeb and also the DS proxy, similar also the Gnosis Safe, we can even go even more specific for different use cases for DeFi. For example, if you look at Maker and opening a CDP, there's quite a lot of interaction happening where just simple batching is not enough. But for these, it's even possible that you have specific logic that then can be executed from within your smart contract that perform these actions. And as mentioned before, last but not least, we have this upgradability, which is very important because it allows us to be future-proof, basically. And there will be new signature formats. We want to have new features to improve the security and be prepared for anything that comes in the future. There has been a lot of discussions also about quantum security. How do we behave in the future when suddenly ECDSA keys are not secure anymore? And it has been pointed out multiple times by different players of the community that with account abstraction and with smart contract accounts, it would be easy to progressively shift over to more secure signature formats. But not only having new features is important, it's also important to be able to adjust to the protocol changes. Ethereum is constantly evolving. There are many changes coming. Just this year we had EIP 1559, which was fundamentally changing how do we pay for transactions, how is the gas price determined, and what is the gas price. Now it consists out of two parts, basically. And if smart contracts are based on this logic, it's obviously important that they can adapt to these changes. Also, storage costs are very important, or in general, gas costs are very important for smart contracts, because as these are ever-changing, it's important that we can adjust at new features. In the future, there will be probably more changes to the protocol that are important. One of the examples listed here is the set indestructible, which was proposed by Vitalik. It will bring us more security, allow you to make sure that your smart contract cannot just disappear suddenly, which is currently still the case. Because of all these reasons, we believe that smart contracts account are really, or smart contracts in general, are really the driver to mass adoption. And therefore, we made it our mission as the SAFE project to advance the transition to smart contracts accounts, really bringing forward account abstraction with smart contracts. As this will be the critical driver for us to further adopt Web3 and bring Web3 to everybody, like to the broad masses.
Yeah, so after Richard explained a little bit why we think smart contract accounts are so critical for kind of like reaching mass adoption in Web3 and kind of explained our vision to make this happen, I'm going to just tell a little bit how we're going to do that. So obviously we knew from the beginning that we cannot just deploy the safe smart contracts and just hope that everyone is kind of like building on top of them. So we built our own interface, which is the safe web interface, which is a way to easily create new safes, to manage assets on these safes, to interact with Web3 applications. And it is built in a very generic way, intentionally, so that it's flexible. It can be used for different kinds of use cases, and it's quite amazing like how it is being used nowadays. So this ranges from like companies using the safe for like payroll. There's DAO treasuries being managed through safe. There's even like families setting up kind of like joint accounts. Cool. Yeah, sorry for the interruption, and glad a couple of you sticked around. Yeah, I guess the other ones that left are not going to make it. But what kind of to summarize what Richard told, we're really passionate about programmable accounts, so smart contract accounts, and the mission of Gnosis Safe is to bring all Web3 interactions to smart contract accounts. And what we've done is building this generic interface, which is suitable for many use cases, for companies to individuals, from NFT collectors to treasury management, from families storing money together to social investing experiments. And yeah, it's just amazing seeing these use cases emerge over time. And we did also build a mobile app that serves as kind of like a safe optimized signer. Obviously, you don't want to manage your keys via a browser extension. So the mobile app allows you to store keys encrypted on your phone, but also connect ledger wallets via Bluetooth to keep keys securely stored on hardware wallets. And we did quite some progress towards our mission of bringing all Web3 interaction to smart contract accounts. There's now more than 50,000 safes created on layer 1 alone, and a couple of tens of thousands on layer 2s on the side chains. And there's already multiple hundred thousands of safe transactions made so far. And actually, just tonight, we reached quite a big milestone where we now have more than 100 billion US dollar worth of digital assets stored using Gnosis Safe. And that just shows that we are already in this transition towards smart contract accounts becoming the standard. But there are many challenges ahead. For example, kind of how the safe system, our interface works today, that it runs on different networks, from Ethereum layer 1 to Arbitrum and Polygon, a couple of more. But we need this safe indexer, this transaction indexer that kind of keeps track of the safes created, the transactions that are made, that is also used to exchange off-chain signatures, just for some gas optimization. But this is quite like a centralized point of failure, especially as like more and more users are kind of relying on this indexer. And also we're hosting an interface, even though it is quite straightforward to like download the desktop app and not rely on like the hosted interface or to host the interface yourself. Still, most users kind of go through this Gnosis hosted client, and this just creates single points of failure, which we don't want to have when we bring kind of everyone to Gnosis Safe. That's one thing, but also because we're building these very flexible interfaces that are suitable for many use cases, this also means that they're not optimized for the individual use cases, meaning that they work quite well for a lot of use cases, but still we don't want to just optimize for DAOs or just optimize for companies or individuals. So yeah, that's definitely a challenge to overcome. And thankfully, there are already quite a couple of like third-party interfaces built on top of Gnosis Safe, such as Radical Orgs, which is used for collective code collaboration, Parcel, which is a DAO treasury tool, but also more tools for individuals, such as Linen, Staker App, or Circles UBI. And quite some developer tooling is being built in this ecosystem, such as third-party modules or Safe Ape, or also Safe Apps that are kind of plugins into our UI. And that's kind of the progression that we want to continue, that we want to make Safe not just a solution, but rather an ecosystem which is owned by the community and run by the community, that consists of kind of the protocol level, which is responsible for securing the assets, but also the infrastructure level, which then is used by developer to build experiences on top. And we also have kind of like what we're currently building as the interface should become kind of more community governed. And then we want to incentivize more projects to build their own optimized experiences on the Safe that can be just dApps that kind of plug into our interface, but that can also be full-fledged interfaces that specialize on certain use cases, that still leverage maybe the infrastructure, the community-owned infrastructure, or even go directly interacting with the protocol. And that's just some of the kind of the components in this, like in the core of this ecosystem. So for the interfaces, we want to make kind of the Gnosis built interface more towards the community interface, which is important as even though there's going to be like many third-party clients, there needs to be one kind of like community-owned client that serves as a backbone in case like other clients are like not available, or just to kind of have like this backup that's not dependent on like one central entity like running it. Even also for the Safe mobile apps, we want to kind of give more ownership there to the community, and also we're building like a command line interface, which is also goes towards more community participation. And same thing for infrastructure. That's what I mentioned before. That's like a very centralized point of failure. We need to find better ways to kind of incentivize contributors to this ecosystem, to kind of build fallback systems and like kind of give more optionality there. And this goes from indexers that kind of provide the data for interfaces to run on, but it's also relayer networks that we imagine that kind of provide better gas abstraction, which was also mentioned by Richard before as one of the key benefits of Safe. And yeah, also the protocol, which is still very much pushed forward by Gnosis. There we want to kind of give more ownership and also more involvement towards the community. And yeah, we're just internally calling this Safe OS as not as an operating system, but as an open system, because it's an ecosystem that's kind of owned and run and yeah, governed by the community. And yeah, just one way how we can then also bring more community participation in that, what we're currently exploring is kind of like a Safe DAO that's controlling aspects of the ecosystem, such as the interfaces or kind of the infrastructure networks. And yeah, that's still early stages on kind of like how we envision this, but we are currently like writing down like our idea of kind of the future of the Safe as part of a white paper. And there it's quite important that this is not just coming out of Gnosis, but this is actually kind of a community effort to define how we want to transition towards smart contract accounts as being the account standard on Ethereum and generally Web3. So we will open up the discussion quite early to the community. So we will just provide kind of like a draft, but we all right. I'm back. We want everyone to kind of contribute. So expect next month to kind of see an early version there where you kind of can give feedback and where we want to yeah, have everyone involved. So the best way how we can kind of keep updated on the developments there is via our Twitter, via the Gnosis Safe Twitter, where just like these announcements will be made. But you can also then participate in discussions either on the Discord, via chat.gnosis.io, or via the forum, forum.gnosis.io. Yeah, and last thing, we're also going to be part of the LisCon hackathon this weekend. So if you want to kind of get started contributing to the Safe ecosystem, make sure to like participate in our bounty there. Everyone that builds on the Safe will get one of 4 NFTs, and then we have a prize money pot of $2,000, which we will distribute across the participants. And yeah, thanks everyone for sticking around, and yeah, if anyone has questions.